It's time for Hot Takes. I'm your host, Savannah Gaida. The rules here are simple. I'll ask a question for our two anchors, and they will get in heated arguments with each other for your viewing pleasure. Let's kick things off with men's soccer, who have not been faring well this season, with a current record of 2-5-1 and going on a 3-game losing streak as of last Tuesday's loss to Villanova. This team has only scored 6 total goals in 8 games. What needs to be done in order to improve the disappointing outcomes we have seen so far?
I guess I can start. You look at this team, there's a lot of different things that this team needs to focus on, but I think primarily it's a seniority on this team that's just completely wrecking their entire season. Now, granted, they did go 2-2-1 to start off the season, but they're on a 3-game losing streak right now, and it's not acceptable when you lose to teams that are below 500. Sure, you shut out Liberty and Brown, good to you, but again, they're also sub 500. They're not doing well in their own conference, their own division. And you look at that American game where they tied 0-0, that went into overtime, they still had to keep going. Americans 0-6-1. The only tie that they had was against our team. So I think there's a lot of things that needs to be done, but it's primarily the seniors that need to get things moving. I mean, there's some freshmen that are trying to move up the ranks, but for the most part, there seems to be a lot of inconsistency with just player mobility, who's in the right position. So I think if going forward, it just needs to be the seniors trying to build up this freshman, because I think as of right now, I think the season's kind of out of shot for them.
Well, Parker, I understand your frustrations. I really do. You're right. They have an experienced team, and they should be winning against teams like, Rhode Island. George Mason is a very good team, but a 3-game losing streak is pretty unacceptable. But we can't lose hope. They're a team that's in transition. They have 6 new freshmen. That is a lot of potential to work with. And as well as their senior goalkeeper, Noah Lubin. This is going to be his 4th year on the team. So I think that, being positive, and the team still has a couple games to go. They have a pretty large remainder of the season. So we'll see how things go this season. But I think that we should stay optimistic.
All right, well, Parker, I like your technical aspect of this, but I'm going to have to give this one to Isabelle. I love her positivity and that optimistic mindset. You won this one, Isabelle. Moving on to women's volleyball, whose season has been a roller coaster ride with every couple of games transitioning from a losing streak to a winning streak, and most recently, back to a losing streak. What issue mostly impacts their lack of victorious consistency?
So I think the biggest issue with volleyball this season is that they're seniors on the team. They're doing really well. They're carrying the team along, but it's those new freshman players that really need to be highlighted for the rest of the season. They have a 6-7 record, so that means that it's really up in the air for where they end up for the remainder of the season. So I think really highlighting those new players that have a lot of potential on the court, I think that can really turn around their season and make it more of a winning season than this shaky 6-7 record.
I think I'm going to agree with Isabelle on this one. I think you can kind of equate this team to that of what we saw from the women's basketball team last year. You had these seniors that were already in position. They've shown experience. They've shown that they can do what they need to do on the court, but you have this new group of freshmen. How do you integrate these teams together and these units together? I think experience is big, but what we saw from last year too is that if the pieces aren't being put together in the right place, it's not going to work. And the women's basketball team is kind of in a similar spot. They were sub 500. They were close to getting even, but they were still falling below time and time again. I am optimistic for this team. You look at Jamison Lee, she's doing pretty well this year, but I think for the most part, take a play from the women's basketball playbook there and just try to make sure that everyone's kind of cohesive, working together. Make sure egos are in check to make sure that the experience and the newcomers are working together.
I think you guys made some really good arguments there. I'm going to have to give this one to Parker. He was a lot more elaborate, but yeah, definitely strengthen those freshman players and the rookies and build on those who are already established. Today's final question is one that has caused me a lot of pain, sleepless nights, and uneasiness. So now I need Parker and Isabelle to help me settle this once and for all. Parker, Isabelle, my question for you is, who is your starting quarterback? Daniel Jones or Eli Manning?
Well, Savannah, I think that's a bad question. We don't have a football team here. But if we do have to answer this question, it's got to be Daniel Jones, right? You look at Eli Manning. Sure, he was good. He beat my Patriots twice in the Super Bowl, but we're not going to talk about that. But Eli Manning has carried this team for a while, but he's getting old. He can't play to the same consistency that he had last year. He has so many turnovers, a lot of interceptions. He looks slow on the field too. He doesn't have the vision he used to have in his earlier years. And so I think it's finally time to pass the torch over to Daniel Jones. And I don't see Eli Manning going anywhere else in this league, quite frankly, just because of his lack of vision, his lack of mobility. His arm strength has been dwindling as well. So, and if you look at Daniel Jones, he scored quite a bit. He silenced Baker Mayfield too, who again is this newcomer as well, who had all this anticipation. He's not playing well. And Daniel Jones, with all the criticism in the world, taking this first game and doing as well as he did, I think there's a lot of optimism for Daniel Jones. And if I had to take him over Eli Manning, I would do it in a heartbeat any day.
Well, coming from Pittsburgh and being a diehard Steelers fan, this is a bit uncomfortable for me to talk about, but I will have to disagree with you. I don't think it's fair to Eli that he's just had this position that he has had for so long stolen from him, and just for some rookie to come and take it right out of his hands. And I just don't think it's fair. But for someone like Eli Manning, who has done so much for the team, the league in general, I just think, it's honestly a disgrace. I think the Eli era is not over yet, and I don't know. I think Daniel Jones still has a lot to prove. The experience that Manning brings to the table is pretty incomparable. So I will have to say that Eli Manning still is in my book.
All right, well, I'm going to have to give this one to Parker. Parker, I do agree with you, and here's why. As a loyal Giants fan, I've been with Eli since the start. I've watched him beat your Patriots twice, the only quarterback to beat Tom Brady in a Super Bowl twice. Not once, twice.
Okay.
And honestly, though, I do think it is the end of an era. His older brother Peyton retired. I think he should follow in his footsteps. And the Giants, they need to grow. We've got a lot of talent on the team. We've got Saquon, and we just really need to build. And I think Eli's had a very respectable career, and now I think it's time for Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, to step up and bring us another ring. And now for the fans at home who are already raising high, here are the games you just can't miss. On October 3rd, join us on the Vern at 3 p.m. to support our women's soccer team in some conference play against UMass. Bring your buff and your blue and be ready to race high. After that, on Friday, October 11th, take the Vex from the Vern to the Charles E. Smith Center and watch our women's volleyball team face off against A10 conference opponent, St. Louis. On Tuesday, October 15th, come support your GW men's soccer team in their DC rivalry against Howard University. Both teams have been struggling this season and will be yearning to add a win to their records. Get your foam finger and wave it on the Vern at 2 p.m. Back to you guys.